Welcome to another episode of The Story of Us, brought to you by Skoob. I'm your host, Madison Reed, and today we're unraveling the strange, surprising, and sometimes scandalous secrets hiding inside the English language. Because the words we speak every day, they aren't just sounds, they're time capsules, carrying traces of forgotten rituals, ancient beliefs, and the messy, fascinating history of human expression. Take this, for example. You're strolling through a spring meadow and spot a delicate yellow flower called a cowslip. Lovely, right? It sounds gentle, poetic, even idyllic. But here's the twist. Cowslip actually means cow dung, not quite as romantic. And that's just the beginning. Today, we're going on a linguistic detective story, from the dinner table to the battlefield, from royal courts to medieval brothels, tracking how everyday words have evolved, twisted, and often lied about where they really came from. Why does goodbye have holy roots? What does sarcasm have to do with flesh tearing? And why are so many of our most harmless phrases rooted in violence, vice, or ancient superstition? By the end of this episode, you'll never hear your own vocabulary the same way again. So get ready to decode the dictionary. Because language isn't just how we communicate, it's how we carry history in every sentence. This is the story of us. Let's talk about linguistic sleight of hand. Some words are master criminals of etymology, presenting themselves as one thing while hiding a completely different past. Take our friend the cowslip. When you hear that name, your mind probably goes to cow's lip, right? That seems logical, poetic even, but you'd be dead wrong. The Old English term was cowslip, and that slippe part meant a slimy substance. So cowslip was essentially medieval slang for either cow slobber or cow dung. Not quite as romantic when you're picking wildflowers, is it? And cowslip isn't alone in this deception. There's oxlip, which traces back to oxansleep, following the same delightfully disgusting pattern. Then we have the cuckoo flower, which had the charming Old English name lustmots, literally meaning pleasure muck. By 1588, someone clearly decided that wasn't marketable, so we got the much more genteel lady smock or lady's smock. But here's where it gets really interesting. Could it be that smock is actually a corrupted form of muck? And did this corruption lead to the addition of lady? We might be looking at the same kind of mistake that made people think foxglove came from folksglove. Now let me throw you a curveball with cheeselip. This obsolete term contains neither lip nor slip, despite appearances. It means a mass of curdled milk in making cheese, or the fourth stomach of a calf prepared for curdling milk. The cheese part is real, but that lip comes from Old English libe, or libe, meaning poison, or antidote. The final P evolved from a B in compound formation, the same process that gave us the P in gossip. What fascinates me is that speakers never lost the connection between cowslip and cows, even though they forgot that gospel contains good and that gossip originally contained God. Some etymological threads are apparently stronger than others. And now, we arrive at the Mount Everest of etymology questions, the one that shows up in every linguistic discussion, the question that makes lexicographers both groan and smile. Why does woman end in man? This is what I call the infamous disguised compound of English. Almost every broadcast about language features someone asking this question, and while the answer is well documented, the fascination never dies. So let's solve this mystery once and for all. In Old English, the word for woman was woofman. Now, before you start making assumptions, let me tell you what its counterpart was. Wepnidman, meaning man. Both words ended in man. Here's the crucial part. Man originally referred to adult humans of either sex. It was gender neutral. The weaponed part, suggesting weapons or armed, gave us the male designation, appearing in compounds like wepnitkild for male child and wepnithad for male sex or sexual power, where that had suffix equals our modern hood. Some scholars even suggest that wepn could translate directly to penis, but it's more likely that Weipindman initially meant warrior and by extension, male. This pattern wasn't unique to English. Old Icelandic used karlmadur and kvenmadur for man and woman respectively. Both employed the same compound structure, and interestingly, both Wolfman and kvenmadur were grammatically masculine nouns, something that didn't bother speakers at the time, but makes modern linguists marvel. The evolution from Weifman to woman is a beautiful example of how pronunciation naturally shifts over time. The long E shortened to I, the FM consonant cluster simplified to a long M, creating women. As English lost long consonants, women became women. The Y sound shifted to woo, giving us woman. Eventually, we got our modern forms. Woman preserves the later pronunciation, while women retains an older form. It's like having linguistic time travel in our daily vocabulary. Now, let's shift gears and talk about something absolutely magical: why certain words sound exactly like what they mean. Have you ever noticed that little sounds small and large sounds, well, large? This isn't coincidence. It's called phonetic symbolism, and it's working in your brain right now as you listen to these words. Globally, speakers connect the A sound, as in rag, with larger sizes, the I sound, as in pin, with smaller sizes, and E, as in pen, with something in between. Words like big and small seem to break this rule, but they're actually exceptions that prove it. These are linguistic rebels, anomalies that make the pattern more obvious by violating it. Let me give you some examples that will blow your mind. Take pimp, which originally meant a little boy or servant. That I sound perfectly captures the smallness. Pimple refers to a tiny swelling, while English dialects also have pumple. And if I just gave you those two words, you'd instinctively know which one contains more infectious matter, wouldn't you? The Latin papula means pustule, and both pumple and papula represent larger swellings than pimple. That progression from I to U to A mirrors the size progression perfectly. Here's another beautiful example: sip versus sup. Sip, first recorded in the 17th century, means consuming a very small quantity. It sounds weaker, more delicate than sup, which evolved to denote larger liquid intake. The phonetics match the meaning. Consider grift and graft, both referring to scams and bribes, but grift sounds thinner, more refined, suggesting subtle fraud, while graft sounds heavier, more substantial. The same pattern appears in bilk versus balk. Some words seem so perfectly named that they feel inevitable. Sippet, a small piece of bread to be dipped in liquid, carries those high, small-sounding I, sounds like little drops of meaning. Snippet and tidbit follow the same pattern. A shark's bite snaps, while a gardener snips. The violence versus delicacy is right there in the sounds. But why does this phonetic symbolism work? The answer lies literally in your mouth right now. Your tongue, that incredibly versatile three-part organ consisting of the body, tip, and root, is the master choreographer of human language. Do this experiment with me. Say the vowels in bet and but consecutively. Feel how your tongue moves forward and backward. When your tongue moves to the front of your mouth, it creates a smaller resonant cavity that amplifies higher frequencies, around 600 and 1800 cycles per second for bet. Move it back, and you get lower frequencies, around 600 and 1200 cycles per second for but. Now try beat and bat. Feel how your tongue moves up and down, even making your jaw help out. This reshapes your throat and mouth chambers, changing their resonant properties, which your brain interprets as different vowel sounds. When your tongue lifts high and moves forward, it creates that small cavity that produces E or I sounds, perfect for small things. When it drops low and pulls back, it creates a large cavity for ah or O sounds, ideal for big things. The squeaks of mice get rendered in teeny with those high front vowels, while elephants get humongous with those low back vowels. This even shows up in technology. Small speakers are tweeters for high sounds, while large ones are woofers for low sounds. English speakers can guess that in Chinese, qiang means light and chung means heavy, even without knowing the language. And studies prove this intuition works above chance levels. I love this example from computer tech. Throbbing means sliding knobs up and down to analyze sound changes, big movements. Twiddling is medium adjustments to personal preference. Tweaking is those tiny final adjustments for perfection. The progression from ob to id to eek perfectly captures the shift from large to small movements. This brings us to one of language's most delightful mysteries. Why do we say fiddle-faddle and not faddle-fiddle? Why ping-pong instead of pong-ping? Why pitter-patter, dribs and drabs, riff-raff, mishmash, chit-chat, zigzag, ding-dong, king-kong, flip-flop, tick-tock, and my personal favorite, bibbidi-bobbidi-boo? The answer lies in that tongue positioning we just discussed. Words with high front vowels come first, followed by low back vowels. It's like a linguistic law of physics. This connects to two fascinating patterns. First, words that signify closeness to the speaker, me, here, now, tend to have higher fronter vowels than words expressing distance, you, there, that. Second, we naturally put close words before distant words in phrases. So the logic flows. Me equals high front vowel. Me comes first. Therefore, high front vowel comes first. It's as if the human mind can't arrange words randomly. When meaning doesn't dictate order, sound takes charge, and it's all based on how your tongue creates vowels. Your lips play their part too. Try switching between the vowels in boot and book. For boot, your lips round and protrude, creating an additional air chamber that filters different frequency sets. This is why you can literally hear someone smile over the phone. Their lips are reshaping their vocal tract. Remember learning about short and long vowels in school? That terminology comes from 15th century phonetics. Originally, vowels were differentiated by duration, quick versus protracted. But then came the Great Vowel Shift, a tumultuous event that changed everything. Long vowels became tense. The tongue root pushes forward, making the tongue hump-like instead of flat, which shifts resonances and creates those complex sounds we hear today. Now, let's travel across the Atlantic to where English had its greatest adventure, America. When the first 104 pilgrims sailed from Plymouth in 1620, they were pioneers in more ways than one. They were replacing hath with has, runneth with runs, and leaving behind thee and thou. If they'd arrived earlier, we might still be using these archaic forms, just like we preserved gotten. But the real excitement began when settlers moved inland and needed words for their new world. They borrowed from everyone they met. From the Dutch came landscape, cookie, caboose, and possibly Yankee, potentially from Jan Kees, John Cheese, a term for Dutchmen in America, similar to how John Bull represents Englishmen. Native American languages provided some gems, though the original terms were impressively long. Mary Helen Dohan noted that translating our question into Iroquoian produced Kumakodanato tumo wetite onganun onash. The lake name Chargogagomanch Ogago Chaobanagungama Oog meant, you fish on that side, we'll fish on this side, and nobody will fish in the middle. Clearly, these needed some editing, so Paco Hikara became hickory, Raugrug Kun became raccoon, Isquanterquashes became squash, and Hootchinoo, a tribe known for homemade liquor, gave us hooch. Indian names were used for over half of U.S. states, plus countless rivers, lakes, and towns, though only a few dozen everyday terms were borrowed: canoe, hammock, tobacco. Spanish contributions were massive, over 500 words, many originally from Indian languages that Spanish speakers had adopted. Rodeo, bronco, buffalo, avocado, mustang, burro, fiesta, coyote, canyon. Buckaroo came from vaquero, cowboy, originally pronounced with accent on the second syllable. Terms like stampede, juzgao, and cafeteria are more precisely Mexican than Spanish, as they didn't exist in Spain. French gave us Indian tribe names and geographical features, sometimes preserving pronunciation, Sioux, Mackinac, and sometimes not, Illinois, Detroit. French words got wonderfully mangled into American forms. Gaufre became gopher, chaudière became chaudière. But perhaps America's greatest linguistic contribution is a simple two-letter word, OK. This might be America's greatest gift to global discourse, and it's grammatically miraculous. OK can function as an adjective, verb, noun, interjection, and adverb. It can express casual agreement, great excitement, lukewarm endorsement, or serve as conversational filler. Try finding another word that versatile. The settlers also created hundreds of new words by combining existing English terms in fresh ways, using Old World words to describe similar but different New World items. The same word might refer to completely different things on different continents. Beech, walnut, partridge, robin, all got repurposed for American species. Moving westward, settlers needed expressions for their vastly different landscape and lifestyle. They created wonderfully colorful terms like hornswoggle, cattywampus, rambunctious, and absquatulate. Sadly, equally exuberant words like monstratious, teetotatiously, helliferocious, and obflisticate have vanished from use. Even currency tells a story. Dollar comes from Joachimsthaler, named after a 16th century German silver mine. Thomas Jefferson proposed it as America's currency name in 1782, noting that the Spanish dollar is a known coin, most familiar of all to the mind of the people. The dollar sign's origin remains mysterious. The best theory suggests it represents the first and last letters of Spanish pesos, though it doesn't really look like a P overlaid on an S. And America itself? Named after Amerigo Vespucci, who mistakenly believed he'd discovered the whole continent and literally put his name on the map. When cartographer Martin Waldseemüller realized the error, he tried to remove the name, but it had already stuck. Vespucci himself preferred New World, or Mundus Novus. Imagine if Americans were called Mundus Novians instead. That's our deep dive into the unexpected, often bizarre origins of the words we use without a second thought. A reminder that language isn't just a tool. It's a living history, filled with twists, turns, and stories, hiding in plain sight. Because behind every word is a world. And sometimes, what sounds beautiful or innocent can trace back to something far more earthy, or even downright shocking. To continue exploring these linguistic hidden gems, how the English language acquired confusing spellings, what's the science behind talking, the significance of vowels in words, why do children learn a new language quickly, how did Europe adopt its alphabet, and more. Head to the Skoob app now. There, we go even deeper into the etymological rabbit hole, with exclusive stories on taboo words, misunderstood phrases, and the surprising connections between language, myth, and power. Because words aren't just labels, they're living relics, and the more we understand them, the more we understand ourselves. Download Skoob on the App Store or Google Play to unlock the full investigation. I'm Madison Reed, and this has been The Hidden Stories of Words on The Story of Us. Until next time, keep listening between the lines, question what you think you know, and remember, the past isn't just in books. Sometimes it's right there on the tip of your tongue.